Guys, welcome back. It's Tommy with another Starcraft 2 replay for you guys. Once again, we have a great engagement, a great international engagement in between the two pro players. So let me just start by introducing them to you as we have spawning here in the low left in the pink. It is SCARLETT from Canada, and her opponent here in the upper right in the blue. It is SERRAL, the current world champion from Finland. So both of them Zerg, a nice Zerg matchup here on an interesting map called Defenders Landing LE. So yeah, once again, we're going a little bit back in time. We're traveling a little bit back in time with the Tommy time machine just to witness these two great players fighting it out here. So let's just see if there's going to be any difference in between their build order, what exactly they will prepare for us. Currently, they're both doing pretty much the same thing. Of course, you can see the production tab here in the upper left part. We have a small difference now as SERRAL has decided here to go for a faster spawning pool than SCARLETT, and I believe SCARLETT is going for a fast hatchery. Yes, you need a fast expansion, but interesting enough, not placing it here next to her main base, actually moving out very far away. So perhaps a little bit of a mind trick here for SCARLETT versus SERRAL. SERRAL opening up standardly with his expansion here next to his base, and there is his fast spawning pool with his gas. Let's have a look at SCARLETT when exactly she will be going for her extractor, and soon should be followed up, of course, with a spawning pool. And no, actually we have a very different build order here by SCARLETT. So interestingly enough, she went for a second expansion, so a little bit of a risky, a little bit of a greedy gameplay here by her. Of course, this could have been punished by SERRAL if he knew with a 6 pool here, but yeah, I believe SCARLETT knows, of course, pretty much the build order from SERRAL. Of course, these two players know each other really well. They have studied their replays, so I believe SCARLETT feels very confident with a nice greedy gameplay here, as now she is halfway done with her spawning pool. Spawning pool, of course, already done here for SERRAL. Let's have a look. Is he already producing the first Zerglings? No, just some queens here. Of course, queens very much important for the Zerg early on. And we see the overload. We see that timer. Let's check the timer from SERRAL, and a little bit of a delayed timer here, of course, for SCARLETT, as the overload still not scouting this expansion here. So quite an interesting move here by SCARLETT. Very risky as the first two Zerglings to move here forward, and one drone is getting spotted here to move into another expansion point. So SERRAL is very soon going to be knowing that something out of the ordinary is happening here, as yes indeed he sees the creep, so he knows what exactly he's up to. He's really still at 2 bases, so SCARLETT having, of course, a economic damage advantage here versus SERRAL. But yeah, let's have a look how SERRAL is going to react to this. Perhaps he's going to not go for his second expansion point. Perhaps he's going to try to harass SCARLETT early on with some Zerglings. Currently he's just retreating. He saw everything he needs to know, and now SCARLETT is actually moving forward with her Zerglings. We see the speed almost being done here for SERRAL. Same can be said for SCARLETT. We do see one Baning's Nest here for SERRAL, so he might have tried to be aggressively early on. A nice catch here by SERRAL with those queens, killing one of those overlords, even taking SCARLETT here being supply blocked. But luckily for her, another overlord is being spawned, so more creep is getting spawned here by the queens. And yes, SERRAL, interesting enough, goes for another expansion point. So yeah, no harassment here, no roach warrant by him. He's pretty much going for another expansion point, and there's his Baning's Nest here as well. So yeah, let's have a look how things will unfold. Of course, we can once again see the production tab in the upper left part. We see 20 Zerglings now being spawned here for SCARLETT versus SERRAL. So pretty soon she might be the one attacking SERRAL very soon. She has no Baning's Nest net, so it's still getting produced. But yeah, so many Zerglings are moving out for her, so we might see her push here in the middle of the map. We might see her try to spawn some Banings as well. But there's so many overloads here for SERRAL, so he should have a vision really soon against this. And here we have the first attack. Good position for SCARLETT, but again some Banings are moving here forward. So she has, of course, to retreat. She has to wait for her own Banings. And yeah, those queens in the back also giving nice protection towards the units. And now we have a massive amounts of Banings and Zerglings fight here, but there's still those 2 queens in the back, so very important damage dealers. Some Banings are attacking here each other, exploding each other, being really fancy here, very cute here, but of course dealing so much splash damage. As yes, SCARLETT might try to reposition, might try to take a better attack. Of course, this choke point is really working here in favor for SERRAL. Interestingly enough, he decides to kill those rocks As more and more banelings will get some connections here. But yeah, let's check the work account, pretty much the same army wise. Of course we do have some casualties thanks to those banelings. But yeah, still nicely, one Zergling is being left to kill the banelings. Still so much splash damages. Scarlet is of course now retreating. Let's have a look, is there a Roach Warrant? We actually see her go for a Roach Warrant. The question is, does SERRAL already have a Roach Warrant? Yes indeed he does, so we might see a transition very soon into massive amounts of roaches and a great connection out of this one baneling, catching so many Zerglings apart here for Scarlet. Some drones did catch some damage here, but in the end she will be able to hold. Her queen holds, and she's actually moving out with two banelings of her own against those Zerglings. So it's a nice banelings Zerglings war here in between the two pro players. Slowly but steadily we're closing towards the 10-minute mark here, so still of course anyone's game. Many connections. Scarlet seems to be having a much higher army count now, so she's looking of course much stronger now. So many roaches, so many Zerglings for her. And let's see if SERRAL can somehow catch up. He also has those roaches here, and we actually see him go for 20 more Zerglings and 4 more roaches. So quite a strong army pretty soon to be here for him as well. Scarlet might try a timing push very soon with her roaches, with her banelings, and more is here to come. More Zerglings, but she seems to be changing her mind. She's retreating back home. Actually, SERRAL moving here out with a small task force of Zerglings, causing some chaos into the main, even causing an all-on retreat here by Scarlet, interesting enough. She's also going for an evolution chamber for some upgrades here, so yeah, let's have a look. Now a little bit of tempo has been lost here for Scarlet as she's retreating back home. Actually she's going for an attack now, but she did lose a little bit of time, so this was here allowed. She actually allowed SERRAL to go for more roaches, more Zerglings, and even is actually building some spine crawlers, so it's of course fearing this attack. So nice banelings connection, so banelings exploding against banelings. And what's left, it's actually Zerglings with roaches now, but still Scarlet of course respects SERRAL so much here, and she's actually retreating. Perhaps she fears a counter with some Zerglings into this location, some banelings perhaps, and yeah, she pretty much decides to retreat now, as SERRAL also plays it very defensively here versus his opponent Scarlet. So yeah, waiting of course on that high ground, having a good vision, having those banelings on the ground. Still of course anyone gains a very balanced game here. We see all of a sudden Scarlet going to 62 of an army, so she might try once again to attack. So some upgrades are also going up here, more units are getting spawned, and a small difference once again, we see SERRAL go for his Spire, so very soon we might see a transition into some Mutalisk. Perhaps this is what Scarlet is fearing. She has no vision yet there, she has no overload, so she's trying a counter here with some Zerglings, but SERRAL seems to be ready with his roaches into this location, so he should be able to hold this really nicely. And yeah, more and more roaches are roaming around. SERRAL still playing nicely defensively here, has one spine, has those roaches out, and yeah, more and more is getting produced. You can of course see the production tab in. The question is he going for mass Mutalisk very soon? Very fast unit, very good to harass the enemy mineral line, as we're about to find out what exactly is going to happen here. Some banelings will be able to get some good connections here, so nice job here by SERRAL, leaving those defensive banelings and killing so much of the army from Scarlet. And at the same time SERRAL is actually feeling really confident. He's moving out with his roaches, but a better position here for Scarlet. However, so many roaches are attacking, and pretty much the same position now for both players is mass roaches versus roaches. We do have some Ravagers however here for Scarlet, so yeah, let's have a look who's going to be the victor here of this battle. Currently SERRAL seems to have now better concave. She's nicely targeting roach after roach. Scarlet tries of course the same thing, she's nicely kiting back and forth, but in the end I believe SERRAL looks like he has just way too much. So in the end, a nice timing push here by SERRAL, winning him here game number 1, so quite interesting. So yeah, let's just jump straight into game number 2. Yeah, let's just jump straight into game number 2. And we're back with game number 2, quite an interesting game number 1, a nice timing push by SERRAL. SERRAL finding the confidence, and in the end, I believe his calculations were right. His roach number was a little bit much higher than Scarlet, so he was able to take that first game. So quite an interesting series. Nice Zerglings were nice Banings connection against those Zerglings from SERRAL, giving him of course a little bit of an advantage into that army. So now they're spawning here on Ascension to Ire. So we have in the upper left, in the pink, it is Scarlet from Canada, but I believe she's currently living in, or still living in, Korea, in a streaming house or a training house, preparing of course for the next tournaments. And we have here spawning in the low right in the blue, it is SERRAL from Finland, the current world champion. But remember, these games have been played, I believe, around 2018-2019, so a retro replay cast once again for you. And yeah, let's have a look. This time I believe they go for the same build order, fast expansion into fast expansion, and a quite interesting build order in game number 1 here by Scarlet, sorry, as she went for her first expansion into this location and then going for her second without a spawning pool. So quite interesting and a nice greedy gameplay by her, but in the end SERRAL proving of course to be a little bit too strong. We see of course the same build order this time for both players, even the drone worker count is pretty much the same here. So let's have a look what the next steps are going to be and what exactly is going to happen, as we see some gas of course getting mined for that speed upgrade for those Zerglings, and we might even see a transition into a faster tier 2 by any player. We might see even a transition into some Mutalisk. It would be very interesting to see some Mutalisk, a rush without roaches. Of course, Mutalisk can be really strong against the mineral line of your opponent. So let's have a look what exactly the next place. Of course, we see the first queens getting spawned for both players, as we also see the first Zerglings move being produced here. So yeah, pretty much the same build order, nothing out of the ordinary yet. Not just like in game number 1, as the overlords are also nicely moving here forward towards the first expansion point. So yeah, let's have a look. More and more Zerglings are getting now being produced by SERRAL, and SERRAL is actually feeling confident. He's moving out. He might try to harass the first expansion point here for Scarlet. He's also nicely spreading those Zerglings. No, not that many Zerglings here for Scarlet. She's going really heavily into those queens. So let's have a look what is going to happen here. Some Zerglings do roam here around the map, but it's just 2 of them, as SERRAL is nicely spreading his Zerglings all over the map. Of course, he wants to have as much map vision as possible, and we see both players also going for their second expansion points here. So yeah, the Zerglings are moving forward. Speed is almost getting done, and Scarlet already taking quite some damage. He doesn't have so many Zerglings left, only 2 here. Some queens also should be brought here as backup. And yeah, Scarlet taking quite some damage already with this one hatchery, as a nice micro war here is going to happen. But in the end, SERRAL is abandoning this location, and yeah, the queen would have also been here forward, so she's actually producing her first queen egg here. And we see a roach war and around the 3-minute and 20-second mark, so this might indicate to us that Scarlet might try a timing push. We see a Baning's Nest for SERRAL, and I believe there is no Baning's Nest here for Scarlet. So now this gets of course scouted by SERRAL, so he knows what is up. Very soon we could see around the 5-minute, around the 6-minute mark, a very strong push here by Scarlet versus her opponent. And let's just see if SERRAL is going to also react with a roach warrant as well. He should, as he's losing here some of his drones, but in the end in comes Scarlet now and really punishing here the expansion point from SERRAL, having so many workers all of a sudden, so many Zerglings, but the first Banings are moving here forward. So Scarlet needs to be careful. Of course, her micro is really strong. She has a better position here behind the middle line, even killing those Banings roaming around back and forth, but the reinforcements are pouring here in for SERRAL. So yeah, nice defense in the end, but he took quite some damage. The same can be said about this expansion point, and SERRAL tries of course a comeback here with some Zerglings, a counter with some Zerglings, but there are already roaches out, and roaches of course very tanky, very strong against those Zerglings. So yeah, let's have a look. Still no roach over, and I believe here for SERRAL. There it is, of course a little bit delayed, so she might try here to attack, like I told you, with a timing push, but SERRAL is very nearby, so Scarlet has to leave some defenses at home, as there's so many Zerglings here for SERRAL, and some Banings of course. So this is the advantage perhaps here by SERRAL, that he has those Banings really deadly against the drones and against the Zerglings. not so good against those roaches. Let's have a look what exactly is going to happen. SERRAL, of course, still showing his presence here, still doing this, of course, just to force SCARLETT to stay more back at home, to play more defensively. And yeah, he's also still roaming around here. And yeah, the overlords also nicely scouting here the proximity. Some damage is being taken here, but we will of course see the first roaches also being produced here by SERRAL. So SERRAL, it is a quite nice job here with his Zerglings next to the expansion point, of course, forcing here SCARLETT to stay a little bit back home. She could have of course left some queens here, but it wouldn't have been enough against so many Zerglings. As yes, SERRAL is still staying here, he's still present, he's really fast, of course, on to creep with his speed, and he might even try to take some drones here out, so SCARLETT needs to be careful. She's nicely microing those drones out of danger. And yes, SERRAL seems to be trapped with his Zerglings, so perhaps a little bit of a miscalculation by him, but in the end he's once again attacking those drones. I believe 3 drones, actually 2 drones have been killed here. So many Zerglings have fallen here for SERRAL, so this could be the push by SCARLETT. She will of course feel confident now she has killed so many Zerglings. Let's have a look at the army count. Army wise pretty much the same, so perhaps SERRAL calculated with this, as he's also sending out some Zerglings now into this lower part. We do have some Zerglings here for SCARLETT. Some drones will be pulled back, but SCARLETT seems like she's pretty much going to commit here. But yeah, so many roaches for SERRAL, and a good position by him. He has the high ground. He already snapped 1 roach, as the small task force is going to get pushed back. So SCARLETT pretty much has to wait for her reinforcements, going for some Ravagers. And yeah, the better position here for SERRAL. He is on the high ground, he deals so much splash damage, but SCARLETT nicely microing her units. The same thing be said here by SERRAL. This is nicely kiting back and forward. Really good job here by both players, targeting the roaches. But in the end, once again, I think that SERRAL seems to be having too much. But hold on, here come the reinforcements here by SCARLETT, but it's just a couple of Zerglings. And yeah, more damage is getting done left and right. Nice fireballs by those Ravagers. But it looks like once again SERRAL seems to be having the upper hand here. But the reinforcements also pulling in here forward for SCARLETT, so she still has a chance. But another wave of Zerglings is being prepared here for SERRAL, as SERRAL has 5 more workers than SCARLETT, and he's pushing here out with his Zerglings. Let's see if there's any defenses. Just 1 roach might get surrounded. No, actually SERRAL decides to commit. Here he's heading straight towards the production line here, and let's have a look. SCARLETT to try to attack here with some Ravagers, but the real action is of course happening here, and sadly for SCARLETT, she's about to lose that expansion. So great pick up here by SERRAL, killing this 1 expansion, and yeah, causing so much chaos here into the expansion point from SCARLETT. So SCARLETT has to bring some Zerglings back, but in the end the damage has already been done, the economic damage has already been done. SERRAL still has 5 more workers and still roams around with his Zerglings, forcing of course SCARLETT to leave some Zerglings behind. And yes, just a couple of Ravagers here roaming around the map, as at the same time SERRAL waits of course on to creep, being ready to get more and more of that HP regeneration. SCARLETT tries to snap this one overload, might be successful, so nice trick by her. As at the same time the Zerglings are still roaming around into the main from SCARLETT, even getting a nice round against this 1 queen, and even spawning some Bane, so SCARLETT a little bit exposed here into her main, taking so much damage. I believe this is going to be an all-in by her, but those Zerglings are still pretty much alive. We have the strong engagement here. In the meantime, 5 drones have been killed, so much damage is being happening here. But yeah, let's have a look what's going to happen. 9 drones have fallen, even 10 drones. SERRAL even nicely kiting back and forth once again, and he seems to be having the upper hand, somehow luckily surviving here. But yeah, nice job here by him. In the end, taking this series 2-0, so quite interesting Zerg versus Zerg matchup we had here in between Finland and Canada. Really strong engagement. In the end, I believe SERRAL proved to be a little bit too strong with those Zerglings. He left those Zerglings into the expansion point from SCARLETT, just forcing her to stay back. If those Zerglings weren't there, I believe SCARLETT would have committed and she would have had much better chance into winning this game. But this time SERRAL proving to be a little bit too stronger, so 2-0 into this series for him. Once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this replays. We'll be seeing of course in the next replays. This is Tommy signing out.